Hey everyone, welcome to Susquehanna Valley Church Podcast. My name is Matt Saxonier, and we're glad to have you with us. Again, we want to help you think about stuff you got to think about and talk about stuff you got to talk about. And I'm very excited with a special guest. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you. Hi. Good day, everyone. My name is Daniel Babalola. I'm an international student at Penn State, Harrisburg. I'm currently studying computer science. I'm really excited to be here today.
I love it. Yeah, Daniel and I, we had the privilege of probably meeting last year, was it?
Yes, at a worship night. So you came to teach that day, and we met.
And I just remember your heart and your passion for the Lord, and I thought I want to get to know this guy at some point, and it kind of worked out this semester a little bit. But
Yeah.
why don't we kind of, I know a little bit of your story, but why don't we fill in our audience on, how did you come to faith? Where are you from, and all that? And yeah, go ahead.
Sure, sure. I'm actually from Nigeria. I moved to the US to start my master's degree last August. So I grew up in Nigeria. About my story, so my parents are pastors, so I grew up in the Christian home, pastor's kid, all of that.
You have both mom and dad. That had to be.
Yeah. So it was pretty intense, I guess, growing up. But looking back at it, it was fun. At least a huge part of it was like I grew up having to read the Bible, having like devotions as a family. To be fair, it was a huge part of my high school experience was me I realized that, okay, I'm probably not living out what I know to be true Christian faith. And there was kind of that separation between, oh, this is how I should be at home and this is how I was in school. And I think I wasn't even sure if probably I was still Christian anymore at that point. But then getting into college, I got to meet people who were really passionate about their faith, and they were also like, we're all the same age, and I knew most of all the things they were saying because I grew up being a pastor's kid, and it really just encouraged me. And I remember that Christmas, I just thought to myself, and I prayed about it a lot, and I kind of made a decision. That was 2013, I guess, to take my faith seriously. I also read a book that really just reminded me about the faith and how real this all is, and that really just started my journey. And since then it's been amazing getting to meet friends, growing in my faith, and even coming to the US, being a part of InterVarsity and having to share my faith with amazing Christian friends here as well. And that's how we met. And it's
Yeah.
that's yeah.
I love that you kind of went through the season of searching and then came back to what you believe, and what that foundation was is faith in Christ, which is so important. Now for me, I was surprised to hear of how much Christianity had a presence in Nigeria. Why don't you just fill our audience in on that a little bit, because it seemed to be that there are more evangelical Christians there than what I had anticipated.
Oh, yes. I think Christianity is pretty strong back home. It's more so towards as you move towards the north, probably Islam gets a stronger presence. It's at this point is more like 50-50 or maybe 49-51. But towards the south, the Christian presence is pretty strong actually. Like I said, even like I grew up in a very strong Christian environment, and I have both Muslim and Christian friends, but there's a very, very strong Christian presence back home.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you come to the U.S., you get connected with Penn State InterVarsity, and great people there. I love them. And then God kind of puts it on your heart to do this sort of international student Bible study. Is that how that worked?
Okay, yeah. So the story behind that, so I got to the US, I got to Penn State. Actually, so one of the things I was most nervous of when I was leaving Nigeria was finding a church family or finding a group of Christian friends or a Christian community when I got here. And I met the president of university then, last year, Zach, and he invited me to join. I'm like, oh, sure, definitely. And then a few weeks down the line, he reached out to me that how would I like to set up something for international students? And I'm like, wow, are you kidding me? That this is something I was really praying about just a few days before. And we kind of started planning that last year about what the Bible study would be, how best can we reach out to more international students and things like that. And that really kicked off last spring. So that's January this year. And it's been amazing since then. But that's kind of a brief story of how it all started. Yeah.
So how does a student at Penn State? Well, let me ask this: are there a lot of international students at Penn State?
Well, yes, relatively yes, I guess. There's it's I don't know the percentage to domestic or international. Maybe 70-30, maybe 60-40. I really don't know. But there's quite an international student presence. At least there are strong international student programs, like they have activities and things like that. Um, so, but when it comes to reaching out to them for a Bible study, it becomes different, right? Because um, the majority of international students at Penn State aren't Christians. So that's how it is. And so, which actually made the Bible study idea very interesting because it's turned out to be I'm here having Bible study with people that a couple of them aren't Christians, a couple of them are, and it just makes for a very interesting conversation every Sunday.
I would guess. So how do you? I mean, do you just walk up to somebody and say, "Hi, I'm Daniel. I'm leading an international student Bible study. Why don't you come over?" How does that work?
Oh, okay. So we actually launched, like I said, so there's a group of American domestic families here around that reach out to international students. So at the start of every semester, they have like this welcome event for international students. So we actually announced that at the welcome event. So that was what that started to get it all started. But then on a smaller level, it's actually just based on word of mouth and friendships. So if I have a friend, I tell them, oh, yeah, I lead a Bible study on Sunday. To be great to have you. And then that kind of spreads. People tell their friends tell their friends. And yeah, that's how it is.
I love it. That's awesome. Do you find that many are open to hearing about the Bible? I know you said they're not Christian, but from our conversations, it seems like there are a number who are curious about what it is.
Oh yes, and it's amazing actually because when we first started planning, we didn't anticipate that a couple of people that weren't even believers would be interested. But it's funny how most of the most consistent members so far aren't even Christians, and it's amazing to see how open-minded they are to just learning. Some of them it may be curiosity. Okay, let me hear what the Bible has to say. But some are really interested in like learning. Okay, what's the Bible or what's the Christian perspective on this? What is Christianity all about? And yeah, it's been amazing actually.
I love it. You were just telling me a little bit ago about a story of a student who attended last year. Why don't you fill us in on that?
Okay, sure. So like I said, we started January last year, and a lot of the conversations we had, we started talking about purpose. Can there be purpose without God? If there is a God, what does that mean for us as human beings, and the idea of accountability and things like that. And there was this day where, so a friend of mine invited like a bunch of his friends. So like four of them came, none of them were Christian. And we had a very interesting conversation around the idea of purpose. Like, what exactly is man created for, and can there be purpose without God, and things like that. And it was a very interesting conversation. They came that Sunday, and then the next Sunday things shut down because of coronavirus, and so we haven't seen since then.
Well,
And he
time, but it's not over.
he yeah, he reached out to me last week, and that hi, how have you been? And we kind of caught up, and he told me that about the things we started discussing, that he's been really thinking about it a lot, and he's in a place where he's trying to like find out what the meaning of life really is and things like that. And I was so excited to hear that. And I'm like, we need to catch up on a call. And then I sent him a couple more resources to kind of to watch, and so when you're done watching them, let's talk. And I reached out to him over the weekend, and he told me that he's really considering coming to faith at this point. And I'm like, wow, that was such a beautiful testimony.
I love it.
And yeah, and I'll fill you in on how the rest of the call goes this week, but it's something that just I was so grateful for the opportunity to like have a platform where people, even if it's just one Sunday, could come to hear about Jesus and how that seed could play out to play out so well in their lives later.
Absolutely. And we as a church can be praying and should be praying, not just for that individual, but for others who are attending this Bible study, for you as you're preparing and you're leading. What are you guys teaching right now? Like what are you going through?
Oh, okay. So this semester we kind of wanted to continue from where we stopped. So last semester we discussed the idea of God, accountability, purpose, and the likes. So this semester we're pretty much looking at the book of John. But like I said, since it's a mixed, it's not like a verse by verse exposition or a chapter by chapter. What we're currently doing is we're looking at the conversations Jesus has with different people. So Jesus and Nicodemus, Jesus and the Samaritan woman, Jesus and the woman that was caught, the Pharisees caught in the act of adultery and stuff like that, and trying to see what are the lessons we could draw from that conversation. What did Jesus think about truth? What did Jesus think about good and evil? What did Jesus think about morality? So that's kind of what we've been on. So we've had conversations around morality, good and evil, truth. We just talked about the story of Jesus and Lazarus this Sunday that just passed. So we've started a conversation around the idea of the supernatural. What is Jesus's view on the supernatural? And then we plan to lead that into the death and then the resurrection. And how does the idea of a man coming back to life, what does that mean for all of humanity? So that's kind of the flow of what we're going to do what we've been doing this semester.
That's incredible. I love that you're having those conversations with people from all over the world in a place, right here in our community. And to me, it's just awesome because the traditional mentality of missions was American church sent people across the world to try and share the gospel. But now we've got people across the world coming to America, and we've got believers such as yourself. And the idea is, well, what can we do to support them? To say, you have these relationships, you're seeing these people on a regular basis. How can we encourage and support you? So I want to ask a question. What are some of the struggles that are unique to a person who is an international student?
Yeah, and I think that's a great question. I think for starters is that sense of community, I guess. I think that's one of the biggest concerns people have when they come into the US or leave any country at all, finding a sense of community, because you're from back home, you have friends, there's already a certain culture, you have an idea of how things work, and then you get into a new place, and that I think helping international students to some of them may not be able to reach out to want to find out one, then they get locked up in their shells. But I think being able to just reach out to them and trying to intentionally provide a community for them is, I think, in my opinion, the best thing that many international students would appreciate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you're providing a community that's centered around faith and the scriptures. How does that work with your schedule as a college student? You're in your master's. How do you balance that?
Oh my God. Yeah. So as far as that's concerned, I think priority plays a big role. So for me, this is pretty much the best or the biggest part of my week. Sunday afternoons, where I get to reach out to people and have conversations around faith. But I guess as regards time management, I don't plan to do anything schoolwork on Sunday because there's no time. I go to church, come back, prepare for Sunday, and then that's it. But yeah, I think God has been really helping me, and just knowing that Sunday is for this purpose, and that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny, you don't know this, but I actually quoted you in church yesterday in the sermon.
Oh.
uh, as we were talking about politics, and we don't need to get into all that, but I just thought you had such an insightful comment about how our ideologies is, how that becomes our identity. And I thought that was very insightful. But I'd love to get your thoughts on some of what God's been teaching you through his word, maybe a passage that he's put on your heart. Anything that comes to mind there?
Oh, sure. So I think just picking up from the story I shared about my friend that reached out to me and wants to come to faith, it just brought my mind back to like what Peter was saying in First Peter 3:15, where he talks about being able or being willing to share your faith with anyone who asks you for the reason for your hope. I, back home in Nigeria, I didn't really like, I had probably never met anyone who had never heard the gospel before, or and that's because of where I lived in my state, or someone who didn't, even if they weren't Christians or they weren't believers, they at least knew who Jesus was, right? But then getting to Penn State and meeting tons of international students, and I'm seeing opportunities to share my faith with people who have never heard the gospel before, never. To them, the Bible was probably, oh, it's just this religious book that this kind of people read. And it's seeing that curiosity and seeing that willingness to learn. That verse comes to mind, that just always have an attitude that you're willing to share with anyone who asks. And just realizing that people are more open-minded than I probably previously thought. Yeah, another interesting, one of the most consistent members since we started was my roommate last year. So he's from China. And when we first had a conversation here in my kitchen, and he had never heard about the resurrection, never heard about pretty much anything. And now he comes every Sunday, he makes amazing contributions, and he joined us for Bible study, he joins for prayer meetings. It's amazing to see how open-minded people could be if we just share with them our faith. So yeah.
I love that idea of always being ready, because what that does is that puts it as like, that's really should be the top of your thought process. That's not like the third or the fourth thing that you should be thinking about. We should be preoccupied with opportunities to share our faith. And so as I meet, as I go into the grocery store and have a simple little conversation with the store clerk, that should be on my heart to think, is there a chance for me to do something spiritual here, to point her to Christ, or wherever we are, always be ready. And so I love the reminder from you that people are more open to this than we realize. And you mentioned the supernatural aspect of Jesus and his ministry. The supernatural aspect now is that God's Spirit is often working in people's hearts. And that we have to have faith to understand. We as a church, we have a value where we expect God to do great things because he always has. And so it's living with that expectation, not just like God's going to do big things like, he's going to give us a building, or he's going to do this, or he's going to do, but maybe the big thing is that he's working in the heart of the doctor that you're going to go visit for a checkup later. Maybe the big thing is that your neighbor is having some difficulty, and Christ has already been trying to draw them to himself, and God has you where you are. So I absolutely love that. You mentioned John 4 earlier. What about that passage is special to you?
Oh, sure. So we kind of looked at Jesus and the Samaritan woman. So from there, and just seeing what Jesus said when the disciples came back, that the field is ready, is ripe for harvest. And I really love what you said just now about understanding that God is already working in the hearts of so many people. And it's something that this past year and leading this Bible study has taught me so vividly. Just always praying to, like, I step out every day and I'm like, God, whatever opportunity that I can take advantage of to share your faith, to share my faith, and to just share your love with someone, that help me not to miss that opportunity. And yeah, what I mean, you see Jesus and the woman at the well. He literally just came and then started a conversation about water, and then led to eternal life. And it's the same thing that happens today. Like you said, you meet someone at the grocery store, and things in his life may have so positioned them that day to be open-minded to something you'd say. This Sunday, actually, a course mate of mine randomly reached out to me that he would like to follow me to church on Sunday. And I'm like, oh, wow, really? And he came and he was asking me, oh, what does Nazarene mean? Because we sang some hymns, and he was asking me, oh, what does Jesus the Nazarene mean? Who's a Nazarene? And I explained, who's the Lamb of God? And just seeing that curiosity to want to learn, it's amazing, because these opportunities come our way ever so often. And if it's our priority to share our faith with every chance we get, then I believe God, like you said, God will do great things. So.
Colossians says, make the most of every opportunity.
Yeah.
Opportunity implies that there is an opportunity, that God's been doing something to make that ground fertile, to make that heart open to receive his word. And so, we've got to look at it like that later today, I'm going to go interact with somebody. My wife and I are going to go out to dinner. There's going to be a server there. And what is that? Is there an opportunity there? How can I take that? And it's really thinking that way all the time, because, hey, let's face it, everybody lives forever somewhere. And it's either with God or it's without God. And we want to be part of as many people coming to faith and living with him forever. Daniel, what are one or two things that we can, as a church, specifically pray for with what God's doing through your ministry there at the International Student Bible Study?
Oh, sure. Thank you so much. I think the first thing would be to that the hearts of the people that currently attend are like, they're always ready to hear the word of God. I think that's something that I would love to pray for. And then just to be able to reach out to even more people in spite of all that may be going on right now. It's slightly harder because we don't see anyone face to face anymore. But there's still, like we said, there's still opportunities through text, through whatever means. So yes, the opportunity to reach out to more people, and just to see God working in hearts as he has been since it started.
That's amazing. And I promise you, I will do that, and we'll get a bunch of people from church back in that as well.
Thank you so much.
Hey, I want to thank you for your time. I think you are a humble, bright young man. I think God's going to do some great things through your life. And so I appreciate you checking in with us. And for our audience out there, thank you again for listening. Again, we want to help you think about things you need to think about, talk about things you need to talk about. The gospel is moving in an area nearby. Let's be praying for it. And let's consider, what about our own area? What about our own little circle of life, and how can we reach them? So thanks again for checking us out, and we will see you next time.